We'll just kickstart. Hi, everyone. Thank you, first of all, for taking the time out of your busy schedule and joining us for this process mining session. I'm Gagan Java. I'm part of the pre-sales team here at UiPath and based out of Melbourne. Have been in the process transformation side of things for the last 10 plus years, doing various different things, which process excellence, RPA. But for the last 3-4 years, process mining slash intelligence slash excellence, whatever you want to call it, that's what my love has been. And as we discuss, I'll definitely share with you why my love shifted towards this end of the things, coming from typical automation background. Like, I still do a lot of automation work, but like I said, my first love has become process mining these days. So with me is Chatur, who's my partner in crime, and we'll be your host for today. While I run this session, it's scheduled for half an hour, and we'll leave some time out for questions at the end. At any point, if you have any questions, or if you want me to dwell further into any of the points which I'm going to discuss, just put it in the chat, or feel free to just jump in, and I'll be more than happy to address that. Now, not taking more of time introducing myself, so let's just jump in. So when I said that process mining has become my love, why do I say so? And people actually, when I say this, a lot of people actually ask me why. Why do I think of such a thing? Why do I say so? Coming from a typical automation background, what? And that's the basic reason. And this is not just my belief, but this is what Forrester and Opinion Research and other analysts in the market are saying, that there was a lot of automation work done based on anecdotal feedback. And a lot of these initiatives did not go through, did not provide the necessary results which people were looking for, the customers were looking for, and the organizations wanted. And there were projections that will save so many hundreds and thousands of hours by doing this automation, but finally it didn't turn out to be the way, because primary reason being there was no data-driven analytics, to say so, behind it. Not a lot of time, not much to support to say why pick up this process. It's just because somebody says that, okay, this process is ideal for automation. And this, or should we not look at automation in this case? Should we just look at simplifying this process? Maybe that solves the process problems. So that's why the whole process misunderstood. A lot of time, processes are established way back in history in 1950s. They still keep on going. People change those processes. They are not documented. They are not. The knowledge is not handed over. And a lot of time, these processes people just do, which are not even required. If you don't have a product today, which was 5 years back, and the process was designed to cater to that product, why that process is still performed, why those steps still go through. That's the whole idea of doing process mining. The whole, like I said, putting data behind it. The whole idea of process mining is that you get your data from your necessary systems, the ERP systems, the customer incident resolution systems, whatever the systems are. You collect the data behind it and get the footprint, the digital footprint. Use that digital footprint left by transactions to see how the processes are doing in the real life, with the way they were designed to work. When the fancy visuals were designed and whatnot tools were used to say that, okay, this is what my order to cash process looks like, or this is how my procure to pay process looks like. But 10 years past, they have changed. They don't look there. So that's the whole idea of to gain those insights as to what the process is doing in real life. What steps should we take towards transforming those processes? Is it just about simplification? Gagan is a key part of the process. He's a approver of invoice, but Gagan goes on potentially leave for 3 days a week. Now, that's not a problem you probably solve by automation. You'll probably introduce another person, or maybe change your process to say that, okay, how do I probably say that, okay, invoices below 5,000 should get automatically processed, or something of those sorts. So there are different ways of solving those problems. But understanding the problem is the basic key thing. Now, when we talk of process mining, the whole idea is, like I said, it's to understand what the process steps are. What is your throughput time? How much time does it take from invoice, receiving an invoice to approving that invoice, from approving that invoice to payment of those invoices and onward. Now, when you're doing this thing, if your approval, like I just gave you an example, a lot of times your vendors are same. You're getting the same kind of recurring invoice from them because you have got a recurring item coming through every month. Can those invoices be processed automatically? That's where you put in the necessary automation into place to say that, okay, this is worth automating. The other example when I was talking about is myself being going on paternity leave and causing a bottleneck in the process. That's how you see how interactions are working between people. When a lot of handovers are happening from one step to other step, that's where some of the bottlenecks come into play. Can we remove those bottlenecks by getting some people out of the loop and everything? The other thing which this data uncovers is a lot of compliance stuff to say that, okay, for a particular invoice, which was $10,000 and above, it has to go to GM approval. Is it going through GM approval? Or is it going just through one level approval and gets processed? So that's a compliance thing. How do I uncover those compliance issues and saying that, okay, do we have some issues of these kinds? And when you have all this data put together and projected nicely, you can know what the volume is. And I'll show you some of this in a minute or so when I get into the demo. What is the volume of work you're doing? What is the cost of rework whenever a rework is happening? If transactions are going through loops because, like I said, it was not required, or there was a wrong transaction done. So what is the cost of these things? Now, all this is supported by, and the more the data you have, of course, you have activities. When we look at process mining, we primarily look at three key things. What is my key identifier? Like when I talk of invoice processing, invoice number could be key identifier. What are the activities it is going through, and what is the time that activity happens? So I can look at the digital footprint and understand how the process is performing, what are the different variations of that process, and where does it usually get stuck, where does it take time. And the more the attributes you have, you can get more analytics out of it. Now, when we look at the UiPath suite and the whole idea of process mining, we look at from multiple routes. So first of all, it's about discovery. What is your process complexity, where the opportunity lies, how do you automate it, and then of course monitor. Now, what a lot of people think that process mining is a one-time exercise. No, it is not. Process mining is an ongoing exercise because once you do the initial analytics of saying that, okay, I've looked at my last 6 months of data, this is what happened. Now, if I'm putting some process transformation steps into place, whether those are process changes, whether those are automations, the idea is to monitor them to see whether they're working, am I getting the desired benefit? So that's why it is a continuous cycle. Now, the process mining from UiPath actually sits on our discovery side of things, where we have got some other tools as well, which is task mining. So while process mining is looking at the digital footprint from the ERP systems, ingesting that data and giving the process map. But what are the activities done by the user for invoice processing? That's something which you can uncover by task mining, which uses AI and ML in the background once the data is gathered to say, okay, while the process on the background is doing this thing, invoice goes from this system to this system, handovers from Gagan to Chatur and everyone. But what is Gagan doing on that invoice? That's something which task mining does. And similar to task mining is task capture, which does not, while task mining, you deploy across multiple different users to gather data and see what is the ideal way of doing things. Task capture is more of a, like I sometimes like to call it helping the business analyst, or sometimes call it automating the business analyst role. So when you have an automation opportunity, how do you actually, instead of a business analyst sitting with someone to capture those steps manually, how you can use a piece of software, and as the user clicks through, through all the screens and whatever they're doing. It captures everything, puts a document together which can be used as a process definition document. And UiPath task capture, whatever is recorded, can work like a starting shell automation in RStudio. And all this comes together in the automation hub, where you can look at all these automation opportunities together, see which one you want to prioritize, and then take the necessary action to take them forward and seek the approvals to do that. Now, what I'll do is I'll just take a quick pause to see if anyone has any questions or anything before I jump into the demo. Fair enough. Now, when we talk of UiPath process mining, now what we look at, currently looking at the screen, is how is a invoice processing process. So this is a process which was designed to say that, okay, and typically this is how invoices are processed. You receive an invoice, you process it, do the necessary checks, you do a final check of the invoice if it's required by some person, it's approved, and pay invoice. And this is how somebody designed the process to say, this is what my process should be. But in reality, when 1 year has passed and actually very different processes, and this is what actually it looks like. It turns into a complete spaghetti, because processes, when they're designed, they're not designed to say that, okay, there's a repeat payment process. Why would this happen? So typically this would not happen, but because of certain complexity of certain transactions, sometimes these activities are done. Similarly, when somebody was designing this process, did they imagine the fact that creditor does not exist or they'll have to request data? Maybe not. Sometimes, and this is what you learn when you're doing all this stuff. Now, so this is one of the, what you see is the process mining actually tool in action. This is a live, so we have got some data over here, which I'll just show you various different things, the various different widgets and the graphical ways you can look and analyze the data. Once the data is ingested, it is understanding its proper, you need to have the basic understanding of the process to say that, okay, now I understand the process on a high level, this is what the process should be, but let me see what the data is showing. Now over here, if I start to play this, actually this widget would actually show how the transactions are flowing from end to end. So each and every case which flows through, it shows. And I can, any point, click on any of these cases. As the color changes, showing that it's getting delayed. If I click on any of these cases, it actually gets me into the delay, that particular case. And if you see over here, it's showing me for each and every transaction how much time it's happening, each and every activity. Like over here, there is an activity which is taking 4 days. Now, this could have been more, this could have been less, but as a go, I can further look at these delays and analyze as to which ones are taking the most amount of time. Now, if I look at this one, if you see they are, for final check of invoice, it's taken 13 days. So it makes me question as to why this invoice is taking so much time. Maybe it's the amount, but at the same time, the case type is small invoice. So if 50,000 is considered a small invoice, why is it taking 13 days to? And that's what makes me question the process to say that, okay, what do I need to do? Now, when you look at this one, often at different places, you'll see that there are certain loopbacks happening. If you see this loopback over here, for 1,562 cases, there's a loopback happening, which actually tells me that this work is getting repeated. And I can further look into, select this and further analyze this as to what is happening. Now, so now it has filtered my data on these particular cases, 1,500 odd cases, and I can further analyze and get into the details of these cases. Over here, it provides me all the details of the cases which are there. I can go into any of these to further analyze where activity is getting consumed, which, like over here, check contract conditions. Over here, it is done by the same person twice, and at a small time gap. Is it a system issue? Is it a process issue? Why it is happening? It should not have happened. Now, that's one of the ways of looking at the data. Over here, if you see, and like I was mentioning attributes, the more number of attributes you have, the better slicing and dicing you can do of the data to get various different insights as to where the problem exists. Now, if I go over here, now I started from here, but of course, these again, these widgets which you see and the interface which you see is highly customizable. We do come with a lot of out-of-the-box templates for certain processes which you can straight away use. But if you want to add your own analysis and own widgets, you can also do that. Now, if I go to the overview tab, over here, I can see a general picture of the data I'm analyzing. So basically, I'm looking at something around 20,000 odd invoices. This is the total amount of those invoices. What is my total throughput time? Now, when I look at, and then there are certain things called tags. Tags are basically rules which I can establish on the transactions. And whenever a rule is broken, it appears. Like over here, we are talking of SLA violation. Now, if I've got an SLA for payment of invoice for, let's say, 5 days or 10 days, if I'm not paying that invoice on time, it could mean that I'm incurring interest or I'm just losing my credibility with the supplier. So, and maybe if I pay on time, I get a discount. So there's always a benefit of them. So out of this, if I look at it, roughly about 5% of whatever the percentage is not getting processed on time, which could be causing some business problem. There is a case for automation. Now, when we are ingesting this data, that data can be marked as, and certain cases, it can be automatically marked by the type of users performing that transaction. If the type of users may be system, we can say that, okay, it's an automated process. And it actually tells me what it is. And similarly over here, if you see, there are some of these activities which are manually performed, there's a cost associated with it, which actually tells us how much time is taken for those manual activities. What's the cost I'm incurring on those manual activities? Now, process invoice being the biggest one. And again, like I said, process invoice, it could be happening that they are manually looking at those invoices. Now, UiPath does have a technology called document understanding, which can actually look at the invoices, grab the data out of it, OCR it, and give it to the automation to automatically process. So there are various different ways of doing this. Going back to the process tab, which I was showing you earlier. Now over here, again, what I can do is I can look at there are various different suppliers. Now, General Advisor is my biggest supplier. So I can further filter on General Advisor if General Advisor is something I'm interested in. Approve selection, and then I can slice and dice data on this basis. Now, over here, when I was the other thing which I was talking about was the compliance part of things. Now, in this particular case, if you see, the process invoice has straight away gone to approve invoice. It has not gone through the approval steps. Sorry, it has gone to approval step, but it has not gone to the final check invoice. Why would it happen? Now, do all process type of invoices do not need this final check? Is it one of those cases where it is a small invoice? And it is again from a general advisor, which is actually one of the suppliers. And I think it was the biggest supplier. So what is different about these invoices, which actually makes it different that they can straight away be processed? I'll clear these filters out. Now, over here, we are seeing the number of cases flowing through various different steps or activities or events, whatever we want to call them. There's another view over here for timing, which can give us the timing of how much time is taken at between the activities. Now, the thicker the line, the more time is taken. Over here, from receiving invoice to processing invoice, is 7 days is the most time taken over here. Again, why can we reduce this time? And then there is another case where if you see from receive invoice, it is going to a final check of invoice without processing invoice. What's different about these invoices? So when I put up these questions, what's different? That's how the whole idea of process mining works. When you have the data in front of you, you are visualizing it, you need to raise those questions to yourself to say, what's different? Why this is happening? Can I replicate this? Or is it something which should not happen and still happening? Now, over here, just like timings, I can see over here from an average throughput time from a supplier type, which supplier has got the most average throughput time, like temporary housing. I can look at from a different people perspective and department's perspective. So case department, which department is handling. So department 3 seemingly takes the most of time. Similarly, there could be case owners, which some of the case owners could be taking a lot of time. So system seems to be the biggest one for whatever reason. Maybe a lot of sometimes the transactions get stuck or something. Maybe there is a process in place which is not ideal within the system, which actually increase the throughput time of the system user. Just like when we are seeing timing, and we can see the interactions as well between users. Now, this is one of the things when you're looking at a process, a lot of time the process gets stuck because of the way the handover happens between various different people from one point to other point. And again, going back to the example which I was giving about myself going on a paternity leave, the same thing this view can bring about. So if I look at the users over here, now over here I'm saying that, okay, I want to look at user activity whenever check contract conditions is followed by any other activity. And if I look at this, Macy Hurst seems to be at the center of things. Roughly about 10% or more than 10% of the total cases out of 20%, 20,000 odd, 2,600 odd go via her. She is involved in some way or the other. Now, this could again be a bottleneck in itself to say that, okay, what is Macy Hurst's job? What is she doing? Maybe she is one of those approvers who has to approve all those invoices. That's why everything goes for her. But is it necessary? Can we reduce it? Can we automate some of this? Can we get another approver in place to reduce our cycle time from 15 days to maybe 10 days and get the necessary discounts? Now, besides this, so just like we can see the user activities, again, on the right side, what you're seeing is the various different ways you can filter this data. Over here, I can again set up different filters. Now, then we have got over here from a user perspective, Macy Hurst we already saw. So 9% of the events actually happen by her. And similarly, what kind of activity is happening? We can see maybe like I was saying, looks like she is one of the approvers. So she does the approval. So that's why her name is appearing. But around 3% of the time she is approving things, but she may be doing the other stuff as well. Now, when I was talking earlier that one of the benefits, while you saw that throughput is there, cycle times are there, you can see where the rework is happening via those loopbacks and everything. One of the things which I mentioned along my slide was the conformance part of it. The whole idea of conformance being that when you put in a process and you put in certain policies around it to say that this is what my policy for this particular process is, which can actually saying that, okay, approval of 5,000 above invoice has to happen by 2 people. So that's a policy. Now, if that's not happening, you have put in a policy in place. If that's not happening, you're not conformant. And this is what this particular tag shows us. We can, in the back end, we can put in our conformance ideal model, process model, say this is what my ideal process model looks like. This is what my process should work like. And once you have that process model in place, you can establish certain rules to say wherever it is breaking, show me those. So, and wherever it is performing well also, you can put those rules. So over here, if you see payment on time, 18,000 times, which is roughly about 90% of the cases it's doing. Similarly, perfect invoice, which means that your invoice does not, you don't need to circle back with the vendor to say that there was something wrong with the invoice and everything. So that's happening so many times. SLA violation, approved and paid by the same user. Now this could be a big issue. This could be a scam within an organization. If I am approving the invoices, I'm paying it myself as well and saying, go hit my bank screen and just pay off the money. So that could be a big compliance issue. So these are the various different things which will come across, and which can be seen from the tags. Sorry, because we set for half an hour, so that's why I'm rushing through it. But once we have gone through this, and if anyone is wants a detail more deep dive, we can have individual sessions. Just send us your contact details. We'll be happy to do that. And then, of course, there are the case details which are there, which I showed you earlier, which can go into individual cases. I'll take a pause over here. There are some questions coming in. I'll just read through those questions. But this is what, on a high level, I wanted to show you. Just dot on time, 3:30. I'll take the questions. So there is a question. Do you have any use case related as below, which user process mining for process, network operations in the environment, like alarm detection process, ticket creation process? Yes, there are. We should be able to find some case studies internally, but there are companies which are using it, especially when it comes to things like ServiceNow, which is we do have an accelerator for incident to resolution process, which is to understand that, okay, how do you get the data from incident data and how well it is resolved and everything. So that's something which is there. Now, call center environment like help desk handling process. Yes, one of the, again, typical use cases which we have come across as to how people within the call center. Now, of course, you are not, you may not be how the call handoffs happen and which kind of calls handoff. If there's data supporting that, that can be pulled, that is pulled from the ERP and can be produced necessary insights to say that, okay. And we have one of our customers did uncover certain training needs for their people to say that, okay, calls of these types will usually get it handed over to the call center managers. So that's very much there. Process mining approach is role-based or individual. Both, you can look at from a both perspective to say that, okay, it's role or individual, depending on what's your business problem. So normally the way I look at it is we look at process mining when we are doing for any of our customers. We look at two different approaches. One is something called as a confirmatory exercise, or the other one is exploratory exercise. Confirmatory exercise is where somebody comes and says that, okay, for me, my team manager are actually take a lot of time in doing XYZ things. So they say this problem. When we ingest the data, we ensure that particular role, team manager, individual, director, whatever the different roles are, they come across and we can say that, okay, slice and dice data according to that. Like over here, if you see, just like there's case owner, there's case department as well. So consider this similar to role or individual. So you can analyze that accordingly and find the necessary insights. Can the process mining tool be accessed through Orchestrator or through Cloud UiPath? Is this available to work with Community Edition? Not through Orchestrator. So it is available both on-prem and as a cloud offering. So if you sign up, you can, of course, get access. I think I'll have to double check, but we do offer a 30-day trial. You can actually sign up and do a 30-day trial as well for process mining. Can you use real-time data with UiPath process mining tool? Yes, real-time data can be used, and that's something which I mentioned, that normally the way our customers do it that when we go on set it up for any of our customers, the initial, depending on the exploratory exercise or confirmatory exercise, exploratory exercise being where the customer does not know what the problem is, they just want us to look at the process. We'll say that, okay, let's depending on which processes it is, what systems are behind that, we'll get the necessary data and we'll ingest it in process mining. Now, once that is done, it will actually show us the insights to say for the last 6 months or year, how the process was doing. But we usually recommend, and that's how everyone does it, that they will set up a data pipeline for ingestion of data on a daily basis. If you don't do it on a real-time basis, because real-time, nobody would be actually looking at it. You can't, at least I have not come across anyone and don't see why you would do it on every transaction flowing through. But on a daily basis, whatever 10,000, 20,000 invoices, let's say in this case, are processed, their data is ingested back into the tool, and they look at the dashboard the next day morning to see what happened yesterday. And as the time progresses, 1 month down the line, 2 months down the line, because you're getting data ingested every day, the delta data is getting ingested every day. That's where you start seeing the difference of whatever process transformation changes you are doing. So you fix certain part of the process, whether it is making a difference to you or not. Are you processing the invoice faster or not? Is Macy still a bottleneck or not? So that's something which happens. I hope I addressed some of these questions. Open to more questions, thoughts. Okay. Thank you so much. I think if there are no more questions, then we'll close this session. Please do let us know. There is, I think, a $50 reward once you send a feedback of. It's not for everyone. There's a lucky draw, but do send us your feedback on the session. And if you'd like a deep dive, like I said, 20, 30 minutes doesn't do complete justice to process mining. There is a lot to be discussed. There are a lot of things which can be done over here. And Shen, we'll send you those, find the right case studies and send it across to them, So if any of you want a detailed deep dive, you can drop an email to any of us, or when you go to the registration page, there are certain email addresses listed over there. Just drop us a note and we'll be happy to do a deep dive session with you and your team. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone.